these boards here, I took fence pickets, pressure treated pine pickets that I've had for a very, very long time. If you're a longtime follower of my channel, you might know I ran into some trouble with the law. My house is on I may have mentioned this before, my house is sort of on a blind corner, a sharp bend. The way the house was oriented to the road, I got a code violation because my fence was too tall because it was considered to be the front yard. Problems with living too close to town, right? So I ended up having to cut my fence down. I had a bunch of pickets left over after having to do that, but that was years ago. You might notice I'm staining these right on top of the plywood. The reason for that is I still have a few sheets left that I'm gonna have to stain anyways. The one nice thing about this Ready Seal is that it's oil-based. It's just based on how much the wood can absorb. So you don't really run into problems with like streaking or with a lot of other fence stains. If you do a second coat, it actually darkens it more, or you might actually start to get a painted look because the pigment is so thick. With this stuff, if the wood can't take it, if it can't absorb it, it's just going to shed it in the next rain. Now, this isn't a totally fair comparison, but this is unstained plywood, pecan color, that is stained plywood, so you can tell it's clearly darker, right? Unstained plywood, stained plywood. And like I'm saying, it's not 100% fair comparison because it does look darker because it's wet. As it dries, it might lighten up a little bit. I'm going to keep working on this. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Alright guys, just to give you some idea of what I'm doing here. These pickets are just a little bit long to reach in between here, and they're still a little bit wet from the stain. So I'm not using a pencil, I'm just using a little screw so that I can score it, and that tells me where I need to cut, because a pencil isn't going to write on, you know, sopping wet wood. I'm also marking these about 1/8 of an inch long. I want to really pressure fit these things in there because I know all of this wood, it's going to shrink a little bit as it dries out after it's done soaking in all this stuff. And I don't want to have a bunch of gaps all over the place, so I'm really kind of squeezing these in a little bit tight. Other than that, that's pretty much it. I'm also using measuring tape to try to keep my screws relatively in the same place, only because when you stand back and look at it, if you see like a little bit of shine from where the screws are, I kind of want them to have nice even lines across the building. I don't know who's going to pay attention to it, but I might, so I'm going to do it. I hope this is starting to make sense on what I'm trying to do here. You can see the sort of board and batten style. Now, right now I have these guys 24 inches on center in terms of the battens. I'm basically kind of keeping in line with all of the structure that's behind all of this cover. But I could add, here, let me go grab one to kind of show you. I'm probably going to review this and make my final decision. Feel free to comment. I always like to read those, but who knows, by the time you comment, I'm probably already will have made a decision on this, but I always like to know if I'm right or wrong. So here's the deal. Those 12-inch ones would be purely cosmetic. I might leave them off for now and finish it. Now, on the camera, I just noticed on the camera, it looks like they're super tiny. Keep in mind that it's 12 inches on center between these if I were to put another one in there. So right now, it looks fair, but I don't know, measure it to my head. It's like 3 bend heads across. Whereas if I were to do one of these, the space in between would be closer to like 1, right? Anyways, I am gonna keep going as far as I can. The sun's already starting to set, so I don't know how much more I'm gonna get done today. I hope you're starting to see what this is going to look like. I'm hoping that as I put these battens up, it's slowly going to start blending all these plywood sheets together, so it's going to look like real wood. The only thing that's giving it away right now, I would say, are 2 things. One, the eye holes in the plywood, like this one right here. You are not going to see that on true just sawn lumber. So that's one thing. And that's another reason why, if I come in here, I would try to cover those up wherever I can. Something like that. The other thing that's giving it away is nobody's gonna use 24-inch wide dimensional lumber on a barn. Like that is some old growth material. So that's the other thing, is the spacing between these is so wide, it's kind of unreasonable to think that that was just solid wood. But other than that, I think the colors looking relatively uniform. Now that these are drying, they're not as dark. You can see they're kind of blending a little bit better with the rest of it. I'm sure once a couple of rainstorms hit these, they'll probably look just fine. I guess that's it. You guys, as always, be good. I'll see you on the next one.